that same CEO that you're talking about, called the president in the Oval Office, who nearly 80 million Americans elected, she called him racist, shared a photo of herself wearing a Biden for President campaign hat, serves on the board of a Soros-funded activist group. In 2020, PBS's White House correspondent at the time characterized President Trump's speech then at Mount Rushmore as a love letter to white resentment, promoting the myth of America. In 2017, PBS devoted an entire panel talking about what it means to be woke and white privilege. In 2023, PBS's Washington Week Roundtable covered up Joe Biden's clear mental divide. That's actually quite the clip. I would encourage all of you to look at it. These are not honest news organizations. These are partisan, left-wing outlets that are funded by the taxpayers. And this administration does not believe it's a good use of the taxpayers' time and money. Ed Lawrence.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. I want to ask you about the Federal Reserve. So does the president believe that the slightly restrictive monetary policy stance right now, could that cause an economic slowdown? And if he does believe that, when?
What pause are you referring to?
No, could the stance of the monetary policy is slightly restrictive? Does the president believe that that stance, the slightly restrictive stance, could cause an economic slowdown in itself?
I haven't heard the president discuss that specifically, but what I do know in regards to the Federal Reserve is the president's been very transparent about his displeasure with both the policies and the management of the Fed, and he spoke about that to all of you pretty extensively in the Oval Office yesterday.
Yeah, and last month, one more if I could, last month the Canadian Prime Minister said the president had agreed to a July 21st deadline to sort of work towards a trade agreement. That's 4 days from now. Could there be a trade agreement with Canada in 4 days?
Well, look, we'll see. The trade team continues to be very active in our conversations and discussions with Canada. The president himself has said, unfortunately, our neighbors to the north have been pretty difficult to deal with when it comes to matters on trade. But in trade, generally speaking, as you know, 25 countries have received letters thus far from the president directly with his big, beautiful signature on them, from Japan to Korea, South Africa, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, just a few countries, and Canada also received a letter for 35%. With that said, if countries want to have legitimate further discussions, the Trump administration and the president's trade team are willing to have further talks, but these letters these countries have been receiving are the deals. And as the president has said, those deals will be made. They are tailor-made to each and every country based on the United States' concerns and what's in the best interest of the American worker and the American people. Charlie, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline.
No, I called on Charlie, but Deanna, you can go ahead too. Go ahead.
The president said that he floated the idea of a special prosecutor in the Epstein case. Can you confirm that? And has he asked the Attorney General to do this, to appoint a special prosecutor to look it over?
Well, the idea was floated from someone in the media to the president. The president would not recommend a special prosecutor in the Epstein case. That's how he feels. And as for his discussions with the Attorney General, I'm not sure. Deanna.
Caroline. Thank you so much. Do you know what the president's reaction was to Mike Johnson saying that he wants additional files released, the Epstein files? Was there a conversation with Mike Johnson about that following his comments?
I won't discuss the president's private conversations with the Speaker of the House, but as I answered to Jackie's question earlier, the president has said if the Attorney General and the Department of Justice and the FBI have any more credible evidence in regards to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, they should put that forward. He has called on them to do that.
Sure. Thank you, Caroline.
With a few days,
I'll go to all of you, starting with the lady in the blue. Go ahead.
with a few days to the August 9th deadline, how are the negotiations with Europe going? There's some sticking points. What are they? Can we expect a delay, or should we expect a deal soon?
Well, I believe the deadline is August 1st. As for the European Union, they continue to be very eager in negotiating with our country for obvious reasons on ways to lower their tariff and their non-tariff barriers that we have long said harm our workers and our companies. So the president's trade team continue to be in talks with the European Union.
Would he accept, or would he put forth a postponement of the August 1st?
He's already said he will not.
Caroline,
Owen, go ahead.
Caroline, good afternoon, Caroline. In Gaza today, Holy Family Catholic Church was struck by an Israeli shell.
Yes.
3 people were killed, 10 wounded. What is the president's reaction to that church coming under fire?
It was not a positive reaction. He called Prime Minister Netanyahu this morning to address the strikes on that church in Gaza, and I understand the Prime Minister agreed to put out a statement. it was a mistake by the Israelis to hit that Catholic church. That's what the Prime Minister relayed to the President, and you should look at the Prime Minister's statement that will be coming out. Steve, go ahead.
Back to your letter that you read at the beginning.
Sure.
The President, you said mild swelling in his legs.
Yes,
Is
sir.
it causing him any discomfort? How are you treating it?
Nope. No discomfort from the President at all, and you probably all see that on a day-to-day basis. He's working around the clock. As for the treatments, I can defer to the President's physician, and we'll get you this letter. I think it will answer all your questions.
Caroline, there are reports that a Chinese-born banker who works in Atlanta for Wells Fargo is being prevented from leaving China. Has the President, is he going to bring this up with President Xi? Are you aware of the case?
I'm not aware of the case, but I'm sure our National Security Council team is. Steve will get you some answers on that. Kristen.
Thank you, Caroline. Two questions. So the first is that President Trump said that the Attorney General only gave him a brief overview of what was in these Epstein files. Does he have knowledge or an understanding of what is in the files related to Epstein that have not been released?
Not to my knowledge, and that's a question for the Attorney General, as I said, and the President has told the Attorney General if they have any more credible evidence, they should release it.
Is that evidence, would she have to run that by the President before she released it?
I don't think so. He said if she has any more credible evidence, she should release it.
Go
ahead.
Thank you.
Go ahead, yes.
Great, thank you, Caroline. Two questions. One, today.
And you can go ahead, Andrew. Don't worry.
Today, tens of thousands of folks are rallying nationwide to honor the legacy of Congressman John Lewis. Meanwhile, Republicans in Texas reportedly are working to redraw congressional maps at President Trump's urging. How is President Trump reconciling his call to action for Texas Republicans with the legacy of Representative John Lewis?
I'm not quite sure how the two things are related. I think the President would agree that John Lewis served our country for many, many years. It has nothing to do with the redistricting efforts that are currently underway by Texas Republicans to add seats to their legislature. They have the right to do that. The President spoke to the congressmen and women who serve the great state of Texas about it, but it's up to them and it's up to their legislature to get that approved.
And Caroline, just the second question.
Go
Does
ahead.
the President support the Justice Department's request for just 1 day in jail for the officer convicted in Breonna Taylor's killing? And what message does he believe that sends to her family and to other families seeking justice in cases of police violence?
I haven't talked to the President about that case. Go ahead.
Just the President,
ahead.
when the President met the interim President of Syria a couple of months ago, he described him as a young, tough, attractive guy. After the latest clashes in Syria over the last few days, does President Trump still support Syria's interim president?
The President still supports Syria's pathway to a peaceful and prosperous country, and you received an update directly from the Secretary of State on the ongoing situation between Syria and Israel. I spoke to him myself this morning to get an update, and as soon as the United States became involved in this conflict, we were able to de-escalate, deconflict. That seems to be continuing. Syria agreed to draw back their troops that were in the area where that clash was ongoing, and we continue to be very actively monitoring the situation. The President wants to see Syria become a prosperous and stable country, and by the lifting of the sanctions on Syria, he's giving them a real chance to do that, and he wants to see that through. Andrew, go ahead.
So on Tuesday, the President told a very detailed story about his uncle, noted scientist John Trump, and Theodore Kaczynski, the late Unabomber. He said that Dr. Trump taught Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski was not identified as the Unabomber until 1996, 11 years after John Trump passed away. It would have been impossible for John Trump to have ever discussed the Unabomber with the President. So what was he talking about? And I have one follow-up.
Andrew, with so many issues going on in the world, I'm a little bit surprised you would ask such a question, although I'm not sometimes coming from you, I will say, but I'm willing to give you an answer. Nevertheless, the President's uncle did, in fact, teach at MIT. He was a very intelligent professor. The President's very proud of his family. In fact, the President has a letter from his uncle on the MIT letterhead that sits in the Oval Office dining room. Maybe we'll let you see it sometime.
And then
Elizabeth.
Caroline, one more.
Elizabeth,
will the
go
President consider pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell
Elizabeth,
if the Epstein case is a hoax?
Okay, I'll start off with the President said last week he would not be getting involved in the New York City mayoral case. If that mayoral race, if that's still the case, given his history drawing a large crowd in New York City, what's his reason for staying out of it in that way?
Well, look, I think the president reserves the right to get involved in races or not get involved in races, and he's made the decision not to weigh in on the New York mayoral race, as you rightly pointed out, although he has gone as far to say he absolutely does not want to see Zemdami elected, who is a known communist who supports the abolishment of private property, the defunding of police. He has made very well-known anti-Semitic statements. It would be a disaster for New York and for this country, and I think it's quite telling that this individual, a known communist, has been spending time in Washington this week meeting with leaders on Capitol Hill. This is truly where the Democrat Party is headed. Clearly, they learned nothing from November 5th in the president's overwhelming victory. Mary, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. I want to backtrack to the hospitals that have stopped providing transgender surgeries and hormones for kids. On this front, does that have anything to do with the DOJ's subpoenas last week? Should we expect any more hospitals be shutting down their programs? And I wanted to also ask what you make of all these media reports, especially the AP, which I noticed, which portrays these children as losing something that's saving their lives.
Yes, I think the president spoke a lot about this issue, which is a political issue, but also really a cultural issue that impacts children and families. He talked about it a lot on the campaign, and I think he was quite surprised by the uptick we were seeing in the embracement by the Democrat Party when it comes to the chemical castration and mutilation of young, innocent bodies. And so the president made it a very early priority to sign very strong executive orders to cut off the funding for any hospital or any medical facility in this country that provides such barbaric procedures. And as a result of that strong policy and the president's strong common sense position on this issue, we've had such an overwhelming response, which is great for children in Arizona. Phoenix Children's Hospital has stopped providing puberty blockers and hormone therapy to minors. In California, Stanford Medicine ended sex change surgeries for minors. Children's Hospital Los Angeles is closing its Center for Trans Youth Health and Development surgical program. In Illinois, Lurie Children's Hospital Chicago stopped sex change surgeries. Again, let's think about what we're talking about here. Sex change surgeries for minors. These are barbaric practices that no child, innocent child, should have to endure. And the president wants to protect the innocence of children, and I know the vast majority of Americans support him in that effort. This is a wildly popular and common sense endeavor this administration has taken, and we've seen many of these medical institutions have followed through with the president's executive orders, but we'll continue to take further action on this important issue. Garrett.
I too, if you'll indulge me.
Sure.
On the rescissions package, I wonder what the White House makes of this theory that it increases the odds of a shutdown. The theory is basically, why would any Democrat vote for a bipartisan spending deal with Republicans if Republicans can turn around and claw the money back the next day?
Look, $9 billion worth of crap that it was in our federal funding that is now being rescinded. This is a good thing for the American people and the American taxpayer, and I think our Office of Management and Budget Director was saying this process should be more bipartisan. Democrats, there was a time in this country where Democrats too cared about getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse in our federal spending. I think every American agrees the government spends way too much money on things that don't matter. Some of those things include PBS and NPR, or for instance, the Democracy Fund, which was funded to the tune of $83 million through the Department of State, but they were giving hundreds of thousands of dollars for gender equality and empowerment hubs in Yemen, $3.9 million for strengthening information integrity, equality, and democracy for LGBTQI population of the Western Balkans. These are not good uses of the taxpayer funds, and Republicans are proud to lead that effort, and we wish more Democrats would join us in that.
I wanted to follow up on the Maureen Comey question just to clarify. Did the White House have any knowledge, or did the president sign off on her firing?
This was a decision that was made by the Department of Justice.
There was an agreement that was made between Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services regarding access to Medicaid information for 92 million Medicaid recipients around the country. That includes health information. So how does that not violate HIPAA violations and privacy concerns, for example, of American citizens?
I'm going to have to defer you to Immigration and Customs Enforcement on that. I'm unfamiliar with that agreement that they made.
Thanks, Caroline. 2 questions. Russ Vought said today he's going to be looking into cost overruns in the Fed's renovation projects. Is there a deadline for him to come back with findings to the president?
I don't believe there's a deadline the president has set for Russ Vought, but I think, again, this is a good use of taxpayers' time to look into this project that is millions and millions of dollars over budget. It's for a big, beautiful mansion for the federal chairman, reserve chairman, and I understand that it costs much more than it did the beautiful palace that many of you joined us at when we went overseas. So it's completely unnecessary, it's overpriced, and I think it's a good thing the administration, led by the president, is looking into it.
If there ever were to find wrongdoing or fraud, would the president reconsidering firing Jerome Powell?
Look, it's a hypothetical question. We'll see where it goes. The president spoke about how he feels on this matter yesterday. Sure,
Thank
go
you
ahead.
so much, Caroline. So we saw Ambassador Huckabee arrive to Prime Minister Netanyahu's trial to show his support. Does the president plan to impose any kind of sanctions against the Israel judicial system?
I don't have any update for you on that or any announcement on that front. I don't believe so.
Does the president believe that justice has been served in the Epstein case?
Look, the president believes that he directed the Department of Justice to do an exhaustive and thorough review, and they did that. And they all agreed, the FBI director, the deputy FBI director, the attorney general, on the memo that they drafted and they released.
Thank you, Caroline. Just a follow-up on Reagan's question. Representative Salazar's bill, it grants illegal aliens with legal status for 7-year increments. It also gives permanent path to residency for so-called dreamers. And, you know, President Trump and Labor Secretary Chavez, who previously co-sponsored a version of this bill when she was in the House, they've spoken about a work deal similar to the bill, I believe. What's the difference between a work deal and amnesty?
Look, as I told Reagan, the president, the White House have not reviewed this specific piece of legislation. It's just not where our focus has been. But the president, for one, has been very clear he does not support amnesty. We'll go to, oh, look at some friends in the back. Brian, go ahead. You didn't show up early enough to get some good real estate up here.
I love it. Any update on the auto pen? I know that there was the DOJ and some others were looking into the thousands of documents that were signed off just before Joe Biden left office. Any update on the auto pen?
Yes. I'm not laughing at you, I'm just laughing at how far away you are, and you're going to need to get some microphones back there. On the auto pen investigation, yes. The White House counsel's office has launched their own investigation into former President Biden's usage of the auto pen. We have requested some documents from the National Archives, and again, as I've said many times from this podium, and the president has said as well, it's incredibly important that we get to the bottom of who really was at the tip of the spear in the decision-making process here in the White House, because former President Biden himself admitted to the New York Times, I understand he never gave interviews when he was here, but now all of a sudden he wants to give one, and he said that he did not actually review every single pardon that he signed on his way out the door. That's incredibly concerning, and I can tell you it's something this president would never tolerate. This is a president who is signing things all the time. Any document that has legal implications, this president's signature is on it because he's the one making the decisions. It does not appear that was the truth in the previous White House, and I know the American people want to receive answers on who was running the show, because the decisions that were made in this place really destroyed our country, and we deserve to get to the bottom of it. Mark, in the back.
Thanks. Some Christian groups are complaining that they are not able to get visas as quickly to travel to Israel, and it's been elevated to Ambassador Huckabee's station. Is the White House aware of that? Does it have any reaction to that? And is that part of the president's disappointment with Netanyahu's government?
Look, I'm not aware of that, Mark, but I'm sure, again, our National Security Council is, and also the State Department. As you know, travel visas roll through Secretary Rubio's shop over there, whom we work very closely with, so we will check in on the matter. But I know overall this president and the administration do want to streamline the visa process to make it easier for both Americans who want to travel abroad and people abroad who want to come to our country the legal way. Sure. Go ahead. I was going to the gentleman above you, but go ahead, Libby, and then you can go.
Okay,
Two questions for you. The first is, during the Hill Nation Summit, Secretary Noem suggested there could be some changes to TSA's liquid limits. Is the president aware of that? Is that an idea that he's backing? And what would that timeline and the changes look like?
Sure. I would defer you to the Department of Homeland Security, but I did see Secretary Noem's comments, and I think it's great that on day one she asked TSA, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? How can we make air travel more efficient while maintaining utmost security for American passengers and travelers? And I know they announced no more shoes, or you don't need to take off your shoes anymore at the airport, which I think is welcome news to all of us who travel a lot. But further guidance or decisions, of course, that's in the Secretary of Homeland Security's overview, and I would defer to her.
The other question for you is on Bondi and Burgum's trip today to Alcatraz. I'm curious what the funding is going to look like for that, and who the president does want to see incarcerated there, if it were to become.
Sure. Well, this was an idea of the president. He spoke about it in May, and he directed his administration to review a reopening plan for Alcatraz if it is possible, which is why the Attorney General and the Secretary of Interior have traveled there today. They are touring the site, and if the Alcatraz prison is reopened, it would be under the purview of the Bureau of Prisons. And the Secretary of Interior also would play a big role in this as well. So they're there to review the site today, and I'm sure you'll hear more from them on it later. And just to follow up, Libby, on who the president wants to see housed in Alcatraz, the worst of the worst criminals in this country, both American criminals who convict heinous crimes, but also illegal alien criminals before deportation as well. Sure. Go ahead.
The State Department yesterday urged the Chinese Communist Party to cease its campaign to eradicate Falun Gong, a peaceful spiritual practice. With the anniversary of this brutal persecution approaching, does the White House have a message for the CCP on this?
Well, I will get you one, and we will get back to you. Sure. Go ahead. We'll take. Go ahead, and then go ahead. Sure. I've never called on you. Why don't you go ahead? In the red tie.
Hello.
Dr. Harper behind.
Thank you.
Yes. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Me, thanks.
Yes.
Thank you, Caroline.
Yes, you. What's your name?
My name is Matias. Thank you.
What's your outlet?
I'm from LindellTV, Brazil.
Great.
Brazil's President Lula recently said that President Trump was elected to govern the United States and not to act as the emperor of the world. And he also emphasized that Brazil is open to negotiation. I'd like to hear what you have to say about it, what the administration has to say about it, and specifically what areas are currently open to negotiation in the light of the 50% tariffs that were announced.
Sure. The president is certainly not trying to be the emperor of the world. He is a strong president for the United States of America, and he's also the leader of the free world. And we've seen a great shift across the entire globe because of the strong leadership of this president. In regards to Brazil, the president sent a letter to Brazil announcing their new tariff. Sent a letter to Brazil announcing their new tariff. Ambassador Jameson Greer to launch an investigation of Brazil. 74, designed to address unfair foreign practices that are affecting U.S. commerce. For years, we know Brazil's digital regulations and weak IP protections have undermined U.S. tech and innovative companies, and their tolerance of illegal deforestation and other environmental practices puts American producers, manufacturers, farmers, and ranchers who follow better environmental standards at a competitive disadvantage. So this president always acts in the best interest of the American people and the United States of America, and he will continue to do so. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you later. I appreciate the enthusiasm today.
You're muted.
All right, well, there you have it. The White House press briefing, a bombshell of one, well attended. As you could see, the room was absolutely packed, of course, in anticipation of more Epstein news, as we knew would happen. Literally the first question of that press briefing. But Caroline left. taking a lot longer to come out today than she normally does, came out swinging, highlighting some of the wins of the administration, successes from ending gender-affirming, quote-unquote, care, actual child mutilation. She also was very interesting to me. She highlighted the mugshots and the names of illegal alien child traffickers, child abusers. We have some footage of that we can show you. She put the mugshots up on the screen, and what I find interesting about that is that literally in my noon show, The Absolute Truth, we discussed that with Tara Lee Rodas. She's the HHS whistleblower who blew the whistle on the fact that the Biden administration had lost hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied minor children who have been brought across the border by smugglers, given over into the hands. Look at this. Look at these people. Their names and faces need to be plastered everywhere. That's what Tara Lee Rodas and I had just talked about at noon on this show. And lo and behold, Caroline Leavitt comes out in the Brady briefing room and she does exactly what we said needed to be done. Tara Lee Rodas said they need to plaster the arrest, to blast the media with the arrest that they have made in regards to child traffickers. And that's exactly what Caroline Leavitt did today, because that is a winning issue, and it shows that the Trump administration is working very hard to protect children and to hold those who have committed egregious crimes against children accountable. Lots to discuss. Our own Allison Steinberg was in the room. I should let you know that this is the Mike Lindell Show. You're not confused on the time if you're asking where is Mr. Mike Lindell. He had to take the day, and it was kind of the perfect day to do so because we did have that late press briefing. So I'll be sitting in the chair with you till 3 p.m. We'll be talking about this for a while, and I'll hand it over to Allison Steinberg. But let's get to it. So much to discuss. Allison Steinberg is now live outside on the North Lawn, having exited the Brady briefing room. Hi, Allison.
Hi, Emerald. How are you? Good to see you.
Why the press briefing? So I know we jumped to you real quick. She literally just came out of the briefing room, folks, and she had to make a mad dash outside, if you know how that goes. I do, because I used to do it, to join us. Very well-attended briefing, Allison Steinberg.
Very well attended indeed. That room was probably the most packed I've seen it thus far. I don't know if it's because they continue to allow new media to come into the briefing room or if people are just so excited because of everything going on currently. But yes, it was many people all the way so far back down the hallway. There were some reporters standing up on the stands where the cameras are supposed to go. That was given to the reporter. So it was totally jam-packed, but no shortage of fun today. Everyone was very enthusiastic. People chomping at the bit to get a question in today, myself included. I was raising my hand as tall as I could, and unfortunately I did not get a question. She called on the girl in front of me and the girl behind me, but for some reason she missed me, so I did not get my question. But she did cover a lot of topics today, everything from the central bank digital currency concerns and this act that is sitting in the House right now. It's expected to pass later today and move on to the president's desk to be signed regarding crypto and stable coins. She also talked a lot about the Epstein files. That was a big topic of discussion today. Really nothing new, though, on that front. She sort of doubled down on what President Trump has already said and sort of reshifted the focus to, this is something that the Democrats just now decided to start getting vocal about. They, have been running the show for how many years and never once brought Epstein up. It's only a topic of discussion now that MAGA is upset about it, and therefore the Democrats are sort of seizing on that moment. So she kind of just restated what we've already heard from President Trump so far on the Epstein files. And then there was also a lot discussed about immigration. It did come up, I'm forgetting what they're calling it, the act in which they're allowing the Democrats to basically get citizenship if they've been in America for 5 years. This is a new pathway to citizenship, which is apparently bipartisan legislation, but I think it's mainly spearheaded by Democrats, and Republicans who claim to be Republicans but are actually Democrats, and they're trying to get these aliens to be actual citizens of the United States. So broad range of topics discussed today, no shortage of fun and information shared.
Yeah, great. I know you have a lot that you want to get through. You have some particular sounds you want to share with our LindellTV audience, having been in the room, and what really stood out to you. I will say I had a conversation with Mark Mitchell while we were awaiting the briefing. He's the head pollster for Rasmussen Reports. His latest polling was handed to the White House yesterday on Epstein. And I did see a shift a bit in the messaging. She was a little bit late coming out today. I think she was fine-tuning her messaging, her statements, and you could see a bit of that. That was a tall order. That's a tough crowd to come out to, and everybody there. You had more mainstream reporters that have been showing up lately. A lot of them have been kind of doing the thing where they start skipping out on the briefings. Every mainstream reporter was there today. Every alternative media, new media reporter was there. Look, Allison, I'm going to toss to break. I'm going to let you get a moment to get your stuff gathered to walk our audience through the rest. And I know you've got a fantastic show prepared. You're going to be filling in for Mike Lindell on the Mike Lindell Show. And so we'll toss a commercial or we'll go to commercial, and you'll join everyone back after the break, and I'll get out of here. So stick around with us till after the break, and Allison will take over. Thanks, Allison. It's always good to see you, though.
Great to see you too.
Swollen limbs, joint pain, inflammation, skin aging, and cognitive decline. These are just a few of the awful side effects that you can experience due to poor blood circulation. And popping ibuprofen is not a solution to the pain. It's only temporary relief, and it's only masking the true problem, which is inflammation. Researchers are saying to add this Antarctic super nutrient to your diet. I'm talking about omega-3 fatty acids, but not just any form of omegas. These particular omega-3 fatty acids are sourced from wild-caught krill. Has been shown to support healthy blood pressure, circulation, brain health, as well as reduce inflammation, swelling, and joint pain. For a limited time, you can grab Native Path Antarctic Krill Oil for up to 66% off plus free shipping. Just go to getkrill.com/Lindell right now to get your special offer. Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? Well, I recently saw a video he made, and I was shocked. That guy's amazing, and he's staying active well into his 80s. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by just making one change. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger, her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Chuck made a very special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/Lindell. It will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/Lindell. You won't believe how simple it is. Whether it's being a weekend warrior or spending time with your family, feeling your best is the key to doing the things you love. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Nirvanta. It's a natural solution designed to help you stay active and live well naturally. Nirvanta is a topical blend of all natural essential oils like frankincense, myrrh, and a proprietary gold standard plant stock extract. It's perfect for your hands, feet, knees, back, or anywhere else that needs a little extra care. Use Nirvanta proactively as part of your daily maintenance routine, and you're guaranteed you're going to feel the difference. Simply massage Nirvanta in for at least 60 seconds, 2 to 3 times a day to get the best results. And if you're not completely satisfied, you get your money back. No questions asked. There's simply no risk and no reason not to try Nirvanta today. Right now, you get 15% off with code Lindell exclusively at nirvantahealth.com. So stop reaching out for that medicine cabinet. Get Nirvanta instead and experience the difference. Go to nirvantahealth.com. Use code Lindell to get 15% off today. Nirvana Health. Live well naturally.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in to LindellTV. You are watching The Mike Lindell Show, and obviously I'm not Mike Lindell. My name is Allison Steinberg. I'm filling in for Mike Lindell today, and I'm very excited to be here. We just wrapped up a press briefing with Caroline Leavitt right behind me here at the White House. It was a jam-packed briefing. So much was covered, and as I touched on with Emerald right before this break, there was some conversation around this Genius Act, which is currently sitting in the House getting ready to be signed and passed on to the president's desk. The president is really urging that this get moved forward so that it can be signed into law, ultimately to protect digital assets, pave the way for stablecoin and Bitcoin, which is now becoming increasingly popular in this new digital age that we find ourselves in. However, there are a lot of concerns here regarding central bank digital currencies. Now, I know President Trump has been very boldly against this. He actually signed an executive order earlier in January, I believe, banning central bank digital currencies. But now we have Marjorie Taylor Greene, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying that she will not sign this because this paves the way for a digital currency. Let's take a listen to what Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying on this.
The Genius Act, President Trump wrote an executive order on January 23rd, and specifically on exactly what the Genius Act is about, except they did not include what was in his executive order, which is a ban on a central bank digital currency, which is extremely important, and the president feels it's important, and that's why it was in his executive order. And the Senate left that out. And then they sent this over to the House, and Speaker Johnson didn't allow us to do amendments to amend the bill to ban CBDC. And that's a House issue. It's not, I fully support the president. I will vote for the Genius Act when they ban central bank digital currency and the Genius Act. So we need to get it right. It shouldn't be run through and us forced to vote on something when they take away our right to amendments. Yeah.
So I do think Marjorie Taylor Greene has a valid point there. Sorry, it's getting very windy here in the swamp. The weather in this place is crazy. Marjorie Taylor Greene has a valid here, saying she was because it is paving the way for a central bank digital currency. I did want to remind the viewers what the Bible warns of this. If we want to throw up her next post, this is a tweet, or rather an X post she put out, and she references Revelation 13, which says, "It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their feet, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name." So many Christians, namely, are concerned that this central bank digital currency is ultimately moving towards the digital dollar, which will inevitably pave the way for the mark of the beast, mark the darkly warns of. If that's the case, this is very concerning and alarming, to say the least. So I do applaud Marjorie Taylor Greene for standing against this, though we do have President Trump, who has said that he's against the CBDC. So it's a little conflicting. But to break this down further and talk about all things digital assets, we have our great guest on now, the CEO of Fisher Capital Group, Spillane. Thanks so much for being with us today. It's great to see you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on central bank digital currencies, this Genius Act. What are your thoughts? Is this for the good of the public, and do you see any concerns with it potentially?
It's not for the good of the public. It's for the good of the government, and it only allows them to have more control over our finances. And any system that's going to take away the people's control is not something that I support. I mean, imagine, let's say we go to a central bank digital currency, and when it comes to just tracking everything that you do, they're going to be able to see that because what they would utilize is blockchain technology. Every transaction you make is going to be on a ledger. And aside from that, I think that their main reason for doing it is probably going to be so that they can collect more money and that people can't hide their money from the government. I think that ultimately, again, this is when you talk about the mark of the beast and and a system that doesn't allow you to buy, sell, or trade, this does align with that message. And as a Christian myself, I definitely have concerns about it.
Well, I'm glad we share that sentiment. I know a lot of people who perhaps aren't Christians or haven't read their Bible are likely cheering this on, thinking that it may be, for their benefit. It's so, easy and convenient, a cashless society, just scan your hand and pay for your goods and services, right? But that is very frightening. And, I don't think we're too far off from seeing that actually become a reality. So I'm glad that we're on the same page there, Alexander. No matter what ends up happening, I think, we need to be prepared for anything that could happen. Just because Trump is in office right now and he's doing so many wonderful things, we do also have to be prepared, right? So what do you think is the best way that we can protect ourselves moving forward from something like a CBDC?
Well, ultimately, I don't think this is something that the people would vote for. I think that the only way that something like this gets passed is through executive order. I have great faith in President Trump to protect us from something like that happening. But ultimately, I think the timing of the discussion and this topic even being brought to light is because I think that they're going to have to utilize some sort of crisis to do this. Just like during COVID, we had a big health crisis and we had all these changes to the way that we live. Same thing with pretty much any major event where we've seen major changes to people's lifestyle and the way that even our freedoms, right? It's always because there's a crisis. So we've had a trade crisis, a border crisis, a health crisis. The last frontier is a financial crisis. And I believe that they will pitch this to the benefit of the people. They'll say, hey, these banks manipulate our money. And because we don't have any sort of technology to track what the banks are doing with the money and control their spending, because remember, back in 2008, 170 institutions failed. Why? Because one minute they had our money and then the next minute they didn't. So we had a financial crisis, which resulted in banks going belly up. And that's just the same as any company going bankrupt, right? When your liabilities outweigh your assets. So there was no accountability for it either. We have no way of knowing, and still to this day don't know what happened to the money, but we do know that they lost it. And I think that this time around, when you see a financial crisis, what's going to happen is ultimately they're going to use this as a catalyst to have an executive order and say, we need this technology, we need this to happen to protect the people, which is just a sham because it's not protecting anybody but them. So,
right? That seems to be a common theme with the government, unfortunately.
that's
But
my
you're
prediction. That's my prediction.
I don't think you're far off. We saw how things unraveled during the COVID scamdemic and how they literally created a crisis, and then they came running back with the solution, the Hegelian dialectic, problem reaction solution. Why wouldn't they do that with the financial system that's basically already been rigged against us anyway? It's just something that we need to be on top of and constantly alert about, because it's our livelihood, and sadly, a tyrannical government could try to take that away from us at any given point. So with that being said, let's talk about gold. Gold is one thing that literally doesn't go away, right? Even if we go full digital, gold still holds value, correct?
100%. The thing I like about gold most is it empowers investors because there's no way to manipulate it, right? You own it physically. It's in your physical possession. It's not attached to a central bank or coupled with a nation's debt. So when you talk about a central bank digital currency, you have to remember that, cash is an asset. It's an asset class of its own. Real estate, private equity, cryptocurrency, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, and gold and silver are all their own asset classes. So ultimately, like if you had a central bank digital currency, but you have your money in the stock market will now be denominated in whatever the value of the digital dollar is, instead of being valued based on, the current currency that we use. So gold is just an asset that you can hold in place of cash that provides a hedge against the worst case scenarios. So far this year, the dollar's lost 10% of its value just in the first half of the year, which is concerning to me because ultimately, for my clients who have other investments but don't have a lot of exposure to gold or real estate or private equity or anything else, right? The way the system's set up is that many investors have a 401k or an IRA that restricts them to just Wall Street's products, which is not a coincidence. It's by design. They've done a genius job of just funneling this money into the products that they own and control, right? So ultimately, I believe that owning gold is one of the best things that you can do to hedge against the worst case scenario that we do see the dollar collapse. I think that's another catalyst for a digital currency to roll out. They'll say if the dollar failed, now we have to have a new currency to save that because this is going to strengthen our country's currency, I think is what they'll do. But ultimately, I think everyone's biggest concern is what happens when it becomes a global currency, right? Because now you have the BRICS nations who are banding together to try and throw the US dollar as the world reserve currency. And they have valid reasons to do that. The US has more federal debt than we've ever had. Our corporate and consumer debt is also at all-time highs. So like if you're making money in the stock market, and I can just do a side-by-side comparison with Venezuela. In a 5-year span where the bolivar lost 99% of its value, their stock market went up 255,000%. But what are those gains worth if the dollar that's denominated in is worthless? And that's kind of the same trajectory that we're seeing in the stock market right now. If you gain 10% in the first half of this year in the stock market, but then the dollar lost 10%, you didn't gain anything because your purchasing power has lost value. So what you can actually do with the money is not really getting you ahead, right? So the reason I like gold is because gold, and many experts speculate that gold doesn't actually go up or down in value. It just simply trades and tracks with the value of the dollar. That's why in an inflation economy, gold goes up in value. The weaker the dollar gets, the more dollars it takes to denominate what the value of 1 ounce of gold is. Because gold doesn't lose value.
That's exactly right.
It's never stopped going up. And ultimately, it's something that you own and control. And let's say the dollar, let's say you were in Venezuela or you were in Germany or you were in Japan, like during periods where their currencies lost value. If you had gold, you wouldn't have been affected at all because gold is globally traded. It's not just denominated based on one country's value of their money, right? So it's a great way to hedge against the worst case scenario that the currency gets devalued or we go into a hyperinflation scenario. And ultimately, if you have a bank account and they decide, well, we're now rolling out a digital dollar, there's going to be an instant conversion that happens, right? And that means that any assets that you have in the bank right now, you won't be able to take out as cash once it becomes digital. So I think the best thing to do to hedge against the concern of a digital dollar or digital currency, the best thing you can do is literally buy gold right now, get some of your money out of a position where a bank can do a conversion, or if that's the concern that they're going to immediately make a switch like that in a worst case scenario, at least you're prepared and at least you have something that's out of their reach.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. And I really, truly believe that, buying gold and putting your investments there is one of the most anti-establishment moves you could possibly make. So everyone, go get your gold. We are almost out of time right now, but I do want to give you one last chance. The briefing ran so long today, so we're short on time. But I want you to please let the viewers know how they can get invested. Alexander.
You can go to mypillowgold.com. We have a special offer for the listeners of Mike Lindell and LindellTV. You can qualify for up to $20,000 in bonus silver with your purchase. You can also text the keyword metals to 26786. You'll get a text right back. And if you fill out your information, we'll go ahead and get you our presidential gold guide, which details exactly how you can use gold to hedge even while President Trump protects our economy. I think some of the worst things that are happening happen to be geopolitical. And so there's a lot of threats to our status as a world reserve currency right now with BRICS nations, talks of a digital dollar. And you've got to at least look at the facts and say, okay, if this is only, let's say these experts that are warning about this stuff are only 50% right. It's just not a chance that you want to take. You don't want to have all your money invested in one place and have all your eggs in one basket. So what I love about gold, and really what this does for our clients, is it helps them diversify and create something that's a safe haven against some of the absolute worst case scenarios. And if we go back in time and look at the clients who did this back in 2008, for example, they didn't just do better, they did much better. And now that gold's done so well, if we do a side-by-side comparison with the stock market, gold's average rate of return annually since the year 2000 has averaged at just under 15%. Side by side, the stock market's tracking about 12%. So gold has actually proven long-term to be the best performing asset that you can hold. And when you hold it for long-term periods, it actually turns out to be a lot cheaper than paying 1% annually in the stock market. So to a financial advisor, for example. So I love what this does for our clients. I'm very excited to share that message with your audience, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much, Alexander. Everyone, be sure to go check it out. And with that, we have to go to a quick commercial break. We will be back with Patrick Kolbeck right after this. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more LindellTV in just a moment.
Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? Well, I recently saw a video he made and I was shocked. That guy's amazing and he's staying active well into his 80s. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by just making one change. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger, her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Chuck made a very special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/Lindell. It will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/Lindell. You won't believe how simple it is.
Welcome back to the Mike Lindell Show. My name is Allison Steinberg, filling in for the great Mike Lindell. Thank you so much for watching LindellTV. As we know and talk about very regularly here on the network, election integrity, securing our elections, more importantly, is a critical issue that is not going away until we get everything resolved. And there's a lot of work to be done. One man who is actively fighting back and continuing to expose the corruption within the corrupt voting system is Patrick Kolbeck. He's the author of the 2020 Coup, What Happened, What Can We Do, and Wrestling Gators, an Outsider's Guide to Draining the Swamp. I love that title. He joins us now. Patrick, thanks so much for being with us. It's great to see you. I know you had a big week last week. You testified in front of the Michigan House Election Integrity Committee. Talk to us about that. What happened there?
Well, the key thing that happened is that a lot of people were informed about all the evidence we've had of election fraud that haven't been told about that evidence of election fraud in a long time. And I want to give kudos to our leadership in the Michigan House of Representatives because they allowed us to have a forum to actually discuss this for the first time in a long time. We have some very good people in the Michigan House of Representatives on the Republican side of the aisle, of course. And so one of the key things we had an opportunity to share is that Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson is routinely issuing directives to election officials in the state, local clerks, county clerks, that is in violation of the law. And we've had 7 court decisions that have affirmed this assertion. And they're saying specifically that she has issued unlawful directives. So this Michigan House under Speaker Matt Hall, actually, when they started off this legislative session, they did something very extraordinary. They actually put into the House rules that the Michigan House Oversight Committee had permanent subpoena authority, which means that they're investigating everything that is going on right now in pretty much a Democrat-controlled executive branch, Democrat-controlled judicial branch, and Democrat-controlled Michigan Senate, and they're doing a really good job. And this committee hearing was just one, take towards that path here. And I think I sent you guys a clip of why this is so important. We actually have the attorney for the Michigan Secretary of State that during her testimony before the Michigan Court of Appeals in a lawsuit called O'Halloran v. Benson, which dealt with the restriction of poll challengers during the elections, and they couldn't do oversight activities. And so we had won in this case at the Court of Claims. We had won 3-0 in a Court of Appeals. And this is the testimony that Heather Meingas, the attorney for Michigan Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, submitted during that hearing, if we've got that clip available.
So all of that. So I don't think we would want to create a war between the branches. And if there was something telling us to do something, and we thought it was okay, we would probably do it. But if it really came to push, this is, conflicts with the Constitution, or this isn't something that we can really do because we couldn't really control it, or it's a bad idea, we might just choose not to do it, right? You could leave that statute sitting there, and we would continue to issue instructions and give guidance, and somebody then would probably sue us. Right?
Here's the Cliff Note version of what she said, because she was rambling all over the place. Basically, she said that if the Secretary of State doesn't agree with the law, she's not going to enforce it. She's going to ignore it. And if you don't like it, you can sue her. So she's been forcing individuals like myself and other meddling kids all across the country, frankly, who have identified the fact that she is conducting unlawful elections in the state of Michigan. She's encouraging us to sue us. And well, that costs money, that takes time, and that's all part of the process. But in the wake of that, going back to the subpoena authority, the Michigan House actually issued a subpoena for all the training materials that the Secretary of State has issued to the election officials throughout the state. And the Secretary of State, threw her a whole bunch of documents, not all of them. And she effectively said, talk to the hand. We're not going to give you any of that information because some of it's dealing with security of how our elections are run, and we don't want to give that to you. Well, I think you can see from that clip from the Secretary of State's attorney why it's so important that the Michigan House issued that subpoena for those training materials, because we have no reason to believe that she is issuing lawful guidance to our election officials in the state of Michigan, which has significant implications for the upcoming 2026 election.
Absolutely. Gosh, this is just out of control, and I'm so glad you're there exposing it. Patrick, we are almost out of time for today. I'm so sorry. The briefing ran so late today, but I did want to get your thoughts before we wrap up here. What ultimately is the call to action? What's the next move? I know Mike always says you got to melt down the voting machines and then throw the criminals behind this in the bars that we created out of the voting machines. What's your call to action here?
Well, I provided a call to action in that briefing, and you can go see that briefing at migrassrootsalliance.org. But there's a bigger call to action nationwide, and this is to Mike's point about what we need to go off and do. The President Trump issued 2 executive orders, one in his prior term and another one in his current term. And if you go to LindellPlan.com, what we're asking for everybody that's listening to us and all your friends and family to go off and help President Trump ensure that these executive orders are actually enforced all across America. So if you go to LindellPlan.com and click on call to action, we'll walk you through steps you need to do in order to help us out to make sure that we can enforce President Trump's executive orders. Now, these deal specifically with improving the security of our election systems and also addressing the fact that why do we have election systems in the country that violate existing statute because they have foreign components from foreign adversaries inside of them. And so enforcement of these executive orders would actually see us getting rid of these machines once and for all in the country.
That is absolutely critical. And again, I'm so grateful for all your work to expose this and everything you're doing. I highly encourage everyone to check that website out. And please get involved, do your part. I think it's our civic duty if we want to, preserve election integrity and have free and fair elections in America, which is our right as an American citizen. So, Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time and insight today. Everyone else, thank you so much for watching LindellTV. We appreciate you so much. Please be sure to share the links, tell all your friends to tune in. We'll be back with more. We have the DC Dispatch with Christy Lee right after this.